Welcome back to our series, Made for More, Experience God's Best. Let's jump into our next session with Joel.
In session 3 of our All In series, we're talking about walking in victory. And our previous session, we talked about being seated with Christ, and that speaks about how God sees us. But walking in victory is our walk on the earth. This talks about how the people around us see us and how they see the transformation that's occurred in our life. And I want to start by sharing a story of a man in the Old Testament called Obed-Edom. And it's an amazing story where the Ark of the Covenant, which was so central to the people at the time, it was so central to their celebration, so central to the temple. It was so central. It really spoke about the presence of God. And at one stage, the Ark of the Covenant was left at a man's house called Obed-Edom. And remember, there was only one Ark of the Covenant. It wasn't like everybody had one of these in their house. This man, Obed, had the Ark of the Covenant that was for a nation. He had it at his house. And you could imagine the significance of this. You know, he would have prioritized it. He would have focused on it. You could imagine he would have placed it in the center of his house, this Ark of the Covenant. And if we pick up with the story in 2 Samuel chapter 6 and verse 11, it says, "The Ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. Now it was told to King David, saying, The Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him because of the Ark of God. So David went and brought up the Ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with gladness." Isn't that amazing? So Obed-Edom hosted the Ark of God, or the Ark of the Covenant they called it, in his house for 3 months, which isn't long. 3 months in comparison to a lifetime isn't a long time for transformation to happen. And the change that happened in his life and his family's life was so much that people around him started noticing. They would have been, is this Obed-Edom? Is this the same person? Look, him, his family, they're blessed. They're in joy, they're in life, they're in peace. They just saw on the outside there was such a change and a transformation in his life because the Ark was in their house and he was hosting the Ark. And King David was almost jealous. He was like, oh, this Ark can't just be for one person. We need to bring the Ark back to the city of David. And so as they brought the Ark back to this place that was so central in that nation, the Ark began to bless not just one person, but all of Jerusalem and then all of Israel. The entire nation was blessed because they hosted the Ark. And that speaks so powerfully about the change and the transformation that can occur with the presence of God. You know, the Ark of the Covenant speaks about Jesus. The Ark was made out of wood, which speaks of humanity, but it was overlaid with gold, which speaks of Jesus who put on humanity, but he was also fully God. And when they hosted the Ark of the Covenant, whether it was in a house, well, the whole family, everyone who lived in that house was blessed. When they took the Ark back to the city of David, everyone in the nation was blessed because of the Ark. How incredible is that? And that's just such a picture of Christ in us. When we have Jesus living and residing in us, and it's not just a short-term thing. It's not just 3 months or 6 months or a year, or it's not just for a season and then off at another season, but we have Christ living in us permanently. We have him living inside of us, changing us from the inside out so that we're different people. And as we walk in this life, we actually walk in victory. We live a life that overcomes. We're not walking under our situation. We can actually walk over our situation. You know what? Jesus walked on the water. He wasn't under the storm. He wasn't under the situation, but Jesus walked over it. And that's a picture of us. When we host Christ, which we do in our lives, we host the presence of God in our life, and it brings real change and real transformation on the outside. You know, the people around Obed-Edom didn't just go, oh wow, he's got these heavenly blessings, you know, he's got these spiritual blessings and these spiritual things. But no, they saw a physical change. Everyone who saw him said, man, this guy is blessed. And it provoked the king to jealousy. He's like, I need this. And that's what happens when we have Christ in us and we walk in the power and authority of who we are. The people around us go, man, I want to know Jesus as well. I want your God to be my God. And we have a positive impact on the people around us. You know, the word says that we are, on the inside, we are rooted and grounded in love. Wow, Christ in us has shown so much love towards us, and that brings a real tangible change on the outside, that we too can show love to other people. You know, one of my favourite verses is Galatians 2:20, and it says, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who lives, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and he gave himself for me. You know what? It's not my works, but it's Christ in me that makes the difference. It's not me overcoming in the flesh, but it's a change on the inside. It says, I have been crucified with Christ. That's the flesh and all those lusts and desires of the flesh. That was crucified with Christ. So we can't rely on our flesh and our own efforts to bring change in our life, but it's Christ that lives in me. How powerful is that? It's not me that brings a change, but it's Christ in me that brings a change. And if there could be a noticeable change in a family's life, especially this man Obed, if there could be change in his life in 3 months, think about the change that happens as Christ lives in us permanently. You know, 3 months, we've got a level of change. And then the next 3 months, we change again. And then the next 3 months, we change again. You know, that's why we go from glory to glory and strength to strength. Don't look back, friends. Don't think I'm going backward. Look forward, because we are actually moving forward from glory to glory. This is a walk of victory. This is a walk of faith. Amen. So what Christ in us means is that we have a new nature on the inside. Instead of having the old sin nature that walks in the lusts and the desires of the flesh, a sluggish nature, a helpless nature, we've been changed to righteousness and holiness on the inside. Ephesians 4 verse 22 to 24 says that you put off concerning your former conduct the old man which grows corrupt according to the deceitful lusts. You know, that old nature that was in those deceitful lusts, you know, you can put that off. You don't have to live in that any longer. You can put off those old addictions, the old anxieties, the old stress, the old worries. You can put that old man off. You can put those old desires off. And it says, be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the new man. How amazing is that? It's not just putting off the old man. It's not just self-help. We actually put on the new man, which was created according to God in true righteousness and holiness. Did you know that on the inside you are truly righteous and truly holy? That's going to change the way we walk. That is going to change our life completely. On the inside, you're not battling to try and do better. You've been made righteous and holy on the inside because of the work of Jesus on the cross. There's a change on the inside, and that change on the inside outworks itself to change on the outside. People are going to see the difference in you because you're going from glory to glory. You're going from strength to strength. So don't look back, friends. Keep looking forward to the promises that God has in your life. So we can all do that. Through Christ's empowerment, we can put off the old and we can put on the new. Put off the old and put on the new. Ephesians chapter 1 verse 10 talks about how we are his workmanship. We were created in Christ for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Wow, we were created for good works. And where people can get confused is they think that we need to do these good works to be made right with God. But no, it's a difference. Remember, God sees us seated in heavenly places regardless of our works. So we're not working to try and earn favour with God. We were created with good. We were created for good works so that we could make a change to the people around us. We can bring a positive impact to our communities, to our families, to our church, to those around us. We can bring a positive impact because we were created for good works. And let's not grow weary in doing good because we were created for that. You know, Christ on the inside wants to bless those who are around us. And so let's not grow weary as we continue to go from glory to glory. But I encourage you, rise up, strengthen yourself, put off the old man that grows weary and forms the lusts of the flesh, and put on the new man, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory, which strengthens you and empowers you to walk in victory. There's a tangible change that occurs, and this is seen in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 28 to 29. And it says, "Let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labour, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give him who is in need. Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers." Wow, so under the old covenant, they had rules and regulations and laws that people simply couldn't live up to. Under the old covenant, it said, do not steal. If you steal, you'll be punished. And it said, do not curse, do not use the name of God in vain, or you will be punished. And in our flesh, we couldn't keep those commandments. But how much of a greater way of living do we see in the new covenant? It's not just saying don't steal, it's saying no, rise up to another level. Don't even worry about trying to steal, but work hard. Labour with the hands that God gave you so that you may be able to bless people around you. You know, it's a higher way of living as we have Christ in us. It's no longer the lust and desire of the flesh to take something that we haven't worked for, or to take shortcuts, or to get something by which we shouldn't have got. But with Christ in us, we actually become generous people. So we're not even looking to try and steal or to rip people off or to cheat other people for our own gain. We're actually looking to be generous people. Can't you see it's another level with Christ in us and this transformation on the inside? In the same way, it's not saying, in verse 29, it's not saying, stop cursing, stop swearing, stop speaking these negative things, otherwise you've got a punishment following. No, it said, rise up to another level. Let the words that come out of your mouth be good, and let them edify, and let them impart grace to the hearers. How good is that transformation? You know, the old man was crucified with Christ, the one that had the troubles with words and with anger and wrath and fury. But the new man with Christ in us wants to impart grace, wants to bless others, wants to actually build people up with our words. So I love it in this new walk of victory. We're not trying to avoid sin. We're actually rising above it, and we're living a life of blessing towards others. And it's a tangible difference. Just like Obed-Edom hosted the presence of God for 3 short months, and the people around him were amazed by the transformation. You know what? As Christ is in you, people are going to be amazed by the transformation that's occurred in your life. You're not the same person. You've put off the old and you've put on the new man, which is Christ in us, the hope of glory. And I believe that as we do that, we won't be struggling with the flesh. We'll actually be walking from glory to glory. You know, the path of the righteous grows brighter and brighter. And we're going from strength to strength. So I speak that over you today, that you are going from glory to glory. The habits and the things that you used to struggle with, put that off and start to see yourself living in a higher level with Christ in you, empowering you every single step of the way. Isn't that good news today? So if I could put that simply, I'd say Christ replaced our desire to sin with empowerment to overcome. I love what Pastor Tony Smith said. He said, our walk is not one of overcoming the flesh in order to enter the Spirit, but rather the opposite. It is by walking in the Spirit that we overcome the flesh. So we're not trying to overcome the flesh by our own efforts. We actually rise up and put on the new man that we may overcome the flesh. So as we walk with Christ, we walk in victory.